Welcome. Please turn your video off while we light the chalice and Black Lives Matter candle. This will allow people to see the words on the screen and follow along. We also recommend that you make certain you have the most updated version of Zoom on your computer. Please note also that we are recording this service, so if you don't want to be in the recording, please keep your video turned off.
Thanks, Corless. And to everyone, welcome to online worship with the First Unitarian Church of Oakland. We are an intentionally multi-generational, multiracial, multicultural, inclusive, anti-oppressive religious community. You are welcome here. I'm Kathy Rades, a member of the Board of Trustees. Here with me are Corless Smith, Dennis Rowcliffe, Piper Swim, our worship producer, Vincent Rains, and many others. Speaking of cameras, for much of this service, we are asking you to turn off your cameras, as this makes it easier for many of us to focus on the music and words. But there will be times to see each other, and we'll let you know when to turn your cameras back on. After the service, we'll gather for virtual coffee hour, a time for conversation and connection. And something new, we are going to be having a new feature this morning, a newcomer breakout room. It's a brief casual time, no more than 10 minutes, for newcomers to receive a special welcome and to ask any questions before joining everyone else in the main coffee hour Zoom room for more informal conversation. While we establish this practice of welcome, we invite members to enter the newcomer breakout room as well to support it. Thanks for all your attention and care to being a warm and welcoming congregation. We light this chalice, our symbol of Unitarian Universalism. May it remind us of the divine spark in all of creation, the power of love to heal what is broken, and to be grateful for life's blessings each day. It is also our practice to light a candle in honor of the Black Lives Matter movement. I am now seeing those words. You can follow along on your screen as well. We light this candle in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement and work for the day in which Black lives are treated equitably with dignity and justice. Thank you, Dennis, for offering this next reading.
Good morning. This essay is called I Pledge Allegiance to the Blue Shoes Girl, and it's by Gordon Atkinson. I pledged allegiance to a little girl in blue shoes yesterday. We all did. The crossing guard shot off the curb with her whistle in her mouth and her white gloves and her nouveau authority. All the cars stopped for one little girl with blue shoes who was a little late for school. She had no idea that all the cars were waiting on her. She stepped off the curb with exaggerated caution, like she was sticking a toe in cold water. Halfway across, something on the ground caught her eye, and she bent over to look at it. The crossing guard had to beep her whistle and give her a head jerk to keep her moving. And then, I swear, she used 3 different walks to get to the other side. There was a skippy little pony walk, a bunny hop or two, and finally some kind of slap-happy thing that I'm pretty sure is from a Bugs Bunny cartoon. There was a flash of blue and a backpack slapping on a tiny bottom, and then she was gone. Little blue shoes girl, you do not know who you are, but we know, and we are struck dumb. We can only stare through the parted waters as you dance your way across the Jordan. Did you know we have a law for you? We made a law so that on our worst days we would not forget. Even on the days when we think being at work on time is more important than little girls in blue shoes, a woman with gloves and a whistle will stop us and make us remember who you are. Some of us say that there is something eternal about you, something we call a soul. We don't exactly know what we mean by that, It might be our way of saying you are 1100 infinity good. But if there is anything eternal in you, any scent of the Creator lying softly on the back of your neck, then you are worth more than all the gold and all the mountains and all the world. Some of us do not believe in souls and do not like to throw words like eternal around carelessly, but we can't deny that you are the most amazing thing we have ever seen. In all our searching and in throwing the best we have at looking deep and far, you, pausing in the street to examine whatever it was that interested you, is the rarest mystery of all. We've only seen this once, and it's right here at home, right here in your little heart. No one knows what you will be when you grow up. You may be a force for good in this world, or you may bring great evil upon us. You have that power. You have those choices, and this is why we stop and stare. But whatever you do, or whatever is done to you, on November 13th, 2003, you were the little girl with blue shoes who carried unthinkable goodness across the street. No one is able to take that away from you.
Thank you for that story, Dennis. So now we will all unmute our microphones and welcome each other this morning.
Morning, everyone.
Hello.
Good
Hello,
morning.
everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Hi, good morning.
Well,
Here's Kath.
That was delightful, Dennis. Thank you,
good
Dennis.
morning.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love that.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you.
thank you, Dennis. I liked that.
Good to see all of you.
Great story.
Hi, Marilyn.
Hello, Amy. Hello, Carol. Hello, Emily.
Oh, hi, Piper and
Okay.
Zia and Owen.
How you doing, MJ?
I'm to see you all. Better.
Hi,
Hello. Hi, Debbie.
Hey, everybody.
Mary,
Sarah, love your hair.
Judith, Joyce.
Thank you.
Okay,
why my picture
Susan.
Hi,
Tom and Tamara. Oh.
all right,
Nora, Tom.
we are going to move with service this week. Thank you so much for greeting each other. It's nice to see everybody. And we are now going to have a story. Please remember to mute your microphones.
Hi, everyone. This is Alex here. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you. I have a very special guest for today's service with us, Nicole Fitzhugh, our coordinator for Children's Chapel and all sorts of wonderful religious education programs. And I first want to thank Nicole for really doing an amazing job taking care of our younger kids, our young leaders and their families during this challenging year. She's been doing a great, amazing job. And she's here with an amazing opportunity for our older leaders and our younger leaders to get together during this time. Take it away, Nicole.
Hi, everybody. So I'd like to invite you all to participate in a program we're calling Postcard Pen Pals. Since we can't be secret buddies this year, let's try being postcard pen pals instead. Here's the plan. Sign up to receive the postcard pen pal kit. It has 4 stamped postcards and the name and address of your pen pal. For 4 weeks, send out a postcard with something fun or hopeful or inspirational that you've seen or done or felt. Signups will begin today, February 14th, and continue through February 21st. We'll mail out the kits on Wednesday, February 24th. Send out your first postcard as soon as possible and continue sending out postcards on the same day every week for the next 3 weeks. Then we'll host a Zoom gathering the week of April 4th for anyone who's interested to see each other and talk about our experiences with the program. Check the chat today or next week's Chalice Chatter for a link to the sign-up form. Or you can email me, nicole@uuoakland.org, for further information.
So Nicole, who can sign up? Anyone in particular?
Everyone, anyone. We would love to have as many older and younger members of the congregation getting to know each other in a little bit of a different way as possible.
Oh, that sounds like a great way to stay in touch, get to know people a little bit better, and to support each other. Well, I'm really excited about our postcard pen pals.
I think it's going to be really fun.
Me too. Well, I hope a lot of people sign up and participate, and I look forward to the celebration at the end.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Have a really happy Valentine's Day.
Hope so, everybody.
We've got to give a little love, have a little hope, make this world a little better. Try a little more, harder than before, just do it, we can do it together. Oh, we can really make it better. Oh, la la la, only if we try. Oh, we can really make it better. Oh, la la la, only if we try. Living in this crazy world, so caught up in the confusion, nothing is making sense for me and you. Maybe we can find a way, there's got to be solution, how to make a brighter day. What do? We've got to give a little love, have a little hope, make this world a little better. Try a little more, harder than before, just do it, we can do it together. Oh, we can really make it better. Oh, la la la, only if we try. Oh, we can really make it better. Oh, la la la, only if we try. Only if we try, only if we try.
I invite you to get comfortable. You really want to get comfortable over here. We'll see if that works, my love. Get comfortable, whatever that means for you and your body. I invite you to follow your breath with your attention as you breathe in and out. We're going to do a bit of meditation together. Now, following your breath is not something that's good for you with your relationship with your body. Then I invite you to choose a focus object instead and just begin taking in all of its details. Whether your focus is on your breath or an object, allow other thoughts to be like clouds that float by above you, present but not distracting. When you feel your attention wander off, gently return your focus to your breath or your chosen object. You might choose to close your eyes or soften your gaze. On this day, when we celebrate love, we are missing so many of our beloveds desperately. So I invite you to turn your attention further inward to that place inside of your body where the feeling of loneliness is centered. Where is that? When you notice the feeling, what does it feel like? That lonely place. Today we are so far from so many that we love, but we can feel that love regardless. And the magic of love is that it can cross any distance. So I invite you now to choose one person who always makes you feel better, who you won't see today. At least not in person. You may not see them this week or this month. Perhaps it's someone you will never see again. With that person in mind, think about what would that person do to comfort you right now? To see that lonely place in you and help you feel better. Picture that person doing it, feel it. Perhaps you might smell or taste what that beloved one would do to comfort you. And as you imagine, that lonely, empty place inside of you begins to fill up. Begins to fill up with the loving kindness of your faraway beloved. That filling up may feel like light or warmth. You just feel like it does when you were with that person. But that feeling expands. Maybe with each breath you take. Maybe just gradually as you focus on your vision of that beloved one. It fills up all of that lonely place and spills over, filling up all of you and spilling over, filling up the space around you and spilling over into the lonely places of some who need this medicine now. With each breath, more gradually, as you feel your beloved. And when you have expanded that feeling as far as you can, and take another breath or another moment. Thank your beloved, the beloved image that you've brought forward. And gradually return your attention to your breath or to your focus object. Basking in that feeling a moment longer. And returning your attention to the here and now of the service together. And as we gather our attention back into this virtual sacred space, invite Corless to give her reflection.
Hi, everybody. On my Valentine's. I think we have a problem with love. Several problems, in fact. Of course, there's just too little of it, as Dionne Warwick sang so long ago. But there are other problems too. One thing is that we use the word love in many different ways. At the altar, someone can say, I love you, and it means something quite different than saying, I just love that movie, or I love popcorn. Most of us know how someone is using the word love depending on the context. We know the person at the altar is speaking from a deep place about a commitment, a promise. We know the person who loves a movie is expressing enthusiasm, maybe even affection. So at the least, love can mean commitment, enthusiasm, and affection. The word can also be wielded in many ways. Dame Edna, one of my favorite comedians, used to say things like, I really hate your clothes, but I mean that in a loving and supportive way. Love can also be used to cudgel another person, as in, I love you so much that I can't help but beat you up. Or it can be a form of blackmail, as in, if you really loved me, you'd fill in the blank with whatever one person wants another person to do. Sometimes sexual desire is interpreted as love, and sometimes it actually is that. Sometimes love is regarded as a form of enchantment, as in, they were so in love that they only had eyes for each other. It's like a hole you can fall into, which you lose yourself, where you lose yourself in feverish excitement. Ah, it can be so delicious to be in love. It's pretty heady stuff. And some people get addicted to it, living from one in love high to another. This is the kind of love that hurts. According to the Everly Brothers and Linda Ronstadt, love hurts, love scars. I think Keb Mo was responding to that in his song that says to a person in despair about their lover, that's not love. Love don't feel so bad. But I guess we know that being in love can be the same as loving someone, but very often it's not. Most people agree that being in love is a transitory state that fades away and may be replaced by something more durable than enchantment. I guess that many, even contradictory ways the word love has been used can lead to cynicism or at the least confusion. My parents paid no attention to my inner life, but they attended very well to my material condition, and they loved me in this way. I didn't grow up worrying about food and clothing as they had grown up, so I didn't appreciate their love as much as I could have. Another example of love confusion. I read a biography of the Beatles and learned that when they were recording the song, All You Need Is Love, they were having a brutal internal fight. It made me wonder. And recently, I read a book called Jesus Wars about the 3rd and 4th centuries when there was enormous controversy about the nature of Jesus. Was he half human and half divine? Did he start human and then become divine? Was he always totally human? There were long-running arguments about this and a great deal of physical violence and bloodshed, lots of it. If one group's definition of Jesus's nature was winning, that group executed those who disagreed. Finally, there was church council to settle the matter, but I was astonished that this was actual history. Floored me. I wondered, how was it that Jesus's message of love, the core of Christianity, was so ignored, thwarted, and contradicted? What did they think they were fighting for? It was about power, not love. So what is that love more durable than being in love? What was Jesus's message? Much wisdom is attached to the saying, love is a verb. Though Jesus didn't say that, I don't think he paid attention to any kind of grammar. It means it's not how we feel that's important, it's what we do with the feeling, how we act. For me, love is present when communication is free-flowing, when I'm not hiding or fearful, when I'm looking out for the other person, enjoying the other person, and they know they can count on me, when I'm seeing them as they are and accepting them. I feel loved when I feel seen and heard. And it's nice when that's reciprocal, but it doesn't have to be. Jesus didn't think so. We usually feel warmth toward the beloved too, though sometimes that feeling can be overshadowed by sorrow or disappointment. During the pandemic, while my husband has been almost the only person I've been physically present with, I've learned some more things about love. The poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote that loving someone means guarding their solitude. Loving someone means guarding their solitude. Not a problem for us because we're both solitary by nature. I've observed and seen my husband's being more clearly and deeply. If he's the only human around, then how I treat him is the measure of my love. And if I'm the only human he has contact with, I want to be a good representative of the rest of us. I want him to feel my love in ways that fit his needs and vice versa. I think gentle humor is important to love because it punctures pretensions and helps us take ourselves less seriously. Which never hurts. Is our love perfect? No, indeed it isn't. But we are loving. We're doing the verb. It's our intention to learn how to do it better. I hope when the pandemic brings me into closer contact, or the end of the pandemic brings me into closer contact with other people, I can extend this loving kindness to you all as well. Finally, I think love is a continuum that starts with simple liking, that includes really noticing the other and being kind to them, sometimes sacrificing for them, and other things that I think you can think of on your own. Love is probably beyond definition and as basic as air and water. I hope in some way we can all be each other's Valentines. May our life be filled with love.
Good morning again. We have a few announcements for a common good. The annual meeting is coming up. Please save your date. March 14th, we will have a service and a meeting starting at 10:30. Please plan to be there. Next Sunday at noon, we will be celebrating the life of Gogi Hodder. Please join us to love, remember, and grieve and say goodbye to our beloved community member. The Zoom link will be in Chalice Chatter. And we have a second facilitation training on February 20th, the day before that. From 1 to 2, we gather to talk about methods of facilitation that bring productive meetings, that build equity and connection. And now, join me in a reading and reflection by our guest, the Reverend Christina Spouty from the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tarpon Springs, Florida.
The reading for today's service was selected by Pastor Teresa. It is called, I Carry Your Heart With Me, I Carry It In, by E.E. Cummings. I carry your heart with me. I carry it in my heart. I am never without it. Anywhere I go, you go, my dear. And whatever is done by only me is your doing, my darling. I fear no fate, for you are my fate, my sweet. I want no world, for beautiful you are my world, my true. And it's you are whatever a moon has always meant, and whatever a sun will always sing is you. Here is the deepest secret nobody knows. Here is the root of the root, and the bud of the bud, and the sky of a tree called life, which grows higher than soul can hope or mind can hide. And this is the wonder that's keeping the stars apart. I carry your heart. I carry it in my heart. Everywhere, says the poem by Warsan Shire, a London-based Somali poet. The end of the poem, titled What They Did Yesterday Afternoon, says, later that night I held an atlas on my lap, ran my fingers across the whole world, and whispered, where does it hurt? It answered, everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. From politics and politicians and the media dividing us, worsened by the pandemic, to the fear that seeps into everything, social media, our homes and schools and work, the fear. We live in fear. Even if we are not afraid ourselves, we are surrounded by fear. Fear is a natural emotional response. Its job is to keep us safe. But it can be abused too, and this last presidential administration and terrorism and assault on the environment and what happens to Black and brown and female and LGBTQ plus and immigrant and indigenous and disabled people, and the news from all over the world, wars, terrorism, refugee crises, abuses, assaults, climate change, pandemic spread and death. So many things to be fearful of and for. So many things used to make us fearful, and we are. And some of us are afraid of or for the people who are afraid. Living in this world is hard, and it hurts everywhere. What do we do? If there was a simple fix that would just make it all better, I hope it would have been applied by now. But maybe we are waiting for someone else to figure it out because it seems too big for us to do alone. Then there are wildly different opinions about how we've even gotten to where we are, and they all know a part of the truth. It can be easy to forget that we know a truth, not the truth. We other each other. We name call and point fingers and antagonize and objectify and act out of our fears. And we might acknowledge that in that place, we may not be our best selves. I actually think that just noticing that we may not be our best selves is movement in the right direction. When we notice others' humanity and our own, that one's important and we sometimes forget it. When we notice our humanity, we might just pause This isn't about who is wrong or who is right or how wrong or right they are. That isn't the foundation for building relationships. It doesn't bring us nearer each other, but keeps us pushing away. It disconnects us rather than connecting us. There's friction, differences. But one truth about human beings is that we are social creatures wired for connection. And it is relationships that are the foundations that sustain us, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We need each other. Friction and humanity. It can be hard to set our own passions and frustrations and excitement or assuredness that we are right or whatever else aside. A practice that can be helpful is to first notice that we are having a response. Especially when we are having an emotional response, we often stop listening to other people. Sometimes I notice that I'm having a conversation with someone either online or in real life and can tell that at best, one of us is listening to what the other has to say. This happens to all of us. I witness it every day. Each person is stuck on their side of the conversation and unable or unwilling to make space for the other side or another possibility. This is talking at or to instead of talking with, and may feel like having two separate conversations because that is indeed what's happening. People are talking past each other instead of talking with each other, instead of being in relationship. They are just trying to be heard. And yet it is in the differences that we find the possibilities and opportunities to build bridges between us sometimes. That the diversity offers not only strength, but its own possibilities and opportunities if we choose to view it that way. That is our work and our wonder. Let's talk about a concept called flipping the script. Non-complementarity is the technical term. So complementarity, which is typical behavior, is when we mirror and reflect each other. For example, if I am smiling and warm to you, you are likely, much more likely, they say, to smile and be warm back to me. If I give you the side eye, seem curt or cold, you are more likely to have a negative response to me, much more likely. Sitting face to face and having a conversation with each other, and one person leans forward, physically leaning in, that is complementarity. Non-complementarity then is when we do the opposite of this. Someone shouts at you in anger and you remain calm, for example. There was a podcast I listened to recently from Invisibilia where a situation was recreated. There were some people that were having a dinner party, a cocktail party outside, and a gunman appeared. At first, the evening partiers tried to make the gunman feel guilty and ashamed. That is complementarity. They're struck by something that has put them off guard, and so they're trying to sort of put him off guard, and as he threatens to possibly harm them and demands their money, they respond with something equally negative. And so they're trading these negatives for negative, matching each other and even trying to outdo the other. And in that case, as is often the case, this escalated the situation very quickly. After some very tense moments, then, one of the partiers offered the gunman a glass of wine and invited him to join the party. That is non-complementarity. Flipping the script, which actually diffused the situation in this case. Flipping the script of what could have happened, what was in the process of happening. In the end, the gunman drinks the wine and has some cheese and compliments how good they are. He notes that he thought he came to the wrong party. And a little later, he asks if he can get a hug, and then a group hug. He apologizes and leaves. Now, in the podcast, they continue exploring this concept using a psychological lens. It's really interesting, and I definitely recommend it. The episode is Flip the Script from July of 2016. And what really struck me is something that is never addressed at all, and it affirms more than anything what each of us wants and needs is to know that we are seen and heard and known and cared for, even if just for a brief period of time, by someone else. That the other has become ours. This can be as deep as listening to each other's stories, knowing another person on a deep heart level. Or it can be much smaller and simpler, all the way down to holding a door for someone and perhaps looking them in the eye. Because for that brief moment, people know that they are acknowledged and someone cared enough about their presence to hold the door. That someone else acknowledged they existed and offered them a kindness. This is a spiritual practice, and in the time of that relationship, from the blink of an eye to months and years of devotion, this is a spiritual gift. It is in the relationship that the holy lives and dwells. Leaning in is a phrase that became popular a few years ago in a different context, but I think that the idea of leaning in offers us much in our relationships too, whether physically or metaphorically leaning in. Not because it solves or fixes anything. It won't necessarily, and that's not the point. But because that it attends to and prioritizes the relationship. Anything we do with intention and care is sacred, holy. It is in the space between us where God is, that God lives. Treating our relationships as though they are where the transcendent dwells, that is where the sacred lives, can transform our interactions and our relationships. When we lean into each other, wanting to know more, letting down our defenses, wondering about the person you're with, that's when things begin to change. So we notice ourselves having an emotional response. We pause and breathe, and we lean in. In the podcast, they say that flipping the script, non-complementarity, is something very, very hard to do. I wasn't sure that I agreed until I started thinking about our natural preference for comfort and familiarity, and leaning in and listening to another person, especially someone we already perceive as different from us in sometimes significant ways. It may be a risk. It may seem uncomfortable. We may not agree with everything someone says. We may be offended. I'm still not entirely sure that this is very, very hard to do, but I do understand that it is against our natural inclination for maintaining the status quo. The other part of this, though, is that when we listen and trust and believe that what another person is saying is true, maybe their truth, but still true, And maybe that's a way to keep present, knowing that this is the other person's truth. When we listen, we are affirming their person, their identities, their beliefs, and most especially their need to be known. And when we do this, we are also affirmed, we grow, and we invite the sacred in with our intention to be in relationship, leaning into that intention when we seek to know each other. A few years ago, when I was a chaplain intern at the VA, I had a new patient who was admitted to my floor whose affect was flat when I visited him. I learned that his wife of 30 years had died the year before, the day after Thanksgiving, her death the subject of a medical malpractice suit. He told me about what a rough and disorderly man he had been, getting into fights all the time, beating people up very badly, drinking too much, and lots of trouble with the law. Eventually, he met the woman he later married, and she made him want to be a better person, and he worked to change. Now, here he was in a hospital after a major surgery, and he felt alone and in a lot of spiritual and emotional pain just on the eve of the first anniversary of her death. The day after Thanksgiving, I went to the hospital for a partial shift. I spent 2 hours with this patient. We talked and sat in silence at times. He told me stories, mostly about other things, his life, dogs, and so on. A few weeks later, my unit was ending, and I was making my rounds to say my goodbyes. I entered this veteran's room, and he had 2 visitors. After introducing us all, he turned to his brother and sister-in-law and said, "She's the one I was telling you about. She came and spent time with me on the day my wife died, so I wouldn't be alone." There was nothing in particular that I said that changed his life, believe me. There are no magic words. There almost never are. But it was that I cared, that I listened, and I was there so he knew that he wasn't alone. It's that human connection that matters. In our faith, we sometimes hear about prophetic witness. The Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker, one of my favorite contemporary UU theologians, says, "Behind the lone prophet who speaks up, there is a group. It is always a mistake to imagine that lone prophets are really alone. We should think of Jesus this way, for example. It is a mistake to see him as an isolated, heroic individual. It is better to see him as the crest of a wave, the sparkling foam breaking brightly from the force of a whole ocean moving and swelling up from underneath." Prophetic witness is incredibly important now as much as ever. It's part of my work, and I believe it's work that we are called to from a particular perspective as Unitarian Universalists, celebrating wholeness and the need for diversity as we do. What we need in times like these is not only prophetic witness, though. We also need what I have come to call prophetic witness. We need each other. We need to learn how to be together and to lean in and listen to each other if we want the world to heal. Parker says, "Behind the lone prophet who speaks up, there is a group. We are part of that group, and the way we do our part is by being with, talking with, sharing with, breaking bread with. I'm not saying that we need to accept intolerance, hatred, bigotry, violence, fascism, or anything else, and I most certainly hope that we don't. But we have become so divided and so focused on needing to, we might say, protect ourselves behind these walls that have been created and are fed into from so many places that we struggle to practice witness. And what this world needs now more than anything is witness. Witness is what we Unitarian Universalists, bound by shared covenants, are called to do by who we are. Krista Tippett says, prophets help us connect the dots between the world as it is and the world as it might be. That space between the dots is sacred space, the space where we are with, where God, whatever your understanding of that may be, where God is with us, where the sacred dwells, when we are with each other. We need to be the people we're hoping to lead us, and we need to practice witness in those spaces, connecting the dots with everyone as best we can, because we can't be the people we want to be with only some people. May we claim our heretical religious heritage, calling for love, justice, and mercy in this life. It has to be with all people. We all need all of us to make it. And this is how we can bring some healing to the world, everywhere.
The water is wide, I cannot cross o'er, and neither have I wings to fly. Give me a bow that can carry two, and bow shall row, my love and I. There is a ship, and she sails the sea. She's loaded deep, as deep can be, but not as deep as the love I'm in. I know not how to sink or swim, for the water is wide, I cannot cross o'er, and neither have I wings to fly. Give me a bow that can carry two, and bow shall row, my love and I lean my back up against an oak, thinking it was a trusty tree. At first it bent, and then it broke, and proved my love she was false to me. For the water is wide, I cannot cross o'er, and neither have I wings to fly. Give me a bow that can carry two, and bow shall roll, my love and and bow shall roll, my love and
Thank you, Stefan. I think that's my favorite version of that I've ever heard. You're such a treasure. Have you enjoyed the rain over the past few weeks as much as I have? It's such a relief. Us gardeners especially feel that. I look at the plants and I see them perk up and swell. And they seem to be saying, oh yeah, glub, 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 more please. Ah. It's so very pleasant to see growing things get what they need. Now, I know you know that this is a somewhat disingenuous introduction to me asking you to support the church, because it too is a living organism that needs nutrition in the form of our donations to keep it healthy. I'm very grateful to those who have pledged, and especially because it allows us to plan. And I'm also grateful to anybody who makes a donation at any time. If you can join either of these groups, you'll be helping to keep our church a living organism, maybe even growing. The screen shows you how easy it is to do. So please say it along with me. To the work of the church, which is weaving a tapestry of love we call community, we dedicate ourselves and these our offerings. And now I'd like to introduce the Chancel Choir, which is the previous incarnation of the Crescendo Choir, singing Spirit of Life, and this will constitute our benediction. Thank you to everyone who came. We were very glad to see you.